Move on to the real Lakers of Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Lakers, LeBron's team, the subject of a canceled HBO Max show, whatever. Jeannie Buss, by the way, was on. Brendan, I find it. I would love to know why Jeannie Buss was how she was like, "Hey, I'm good with going on the show on their official podcast at the end of season 2." Like, fascinating. Then to unpack the Jeannie Buss.
She looks good in that show. So
yeah, it's just like her dad does not come across like super great.
It's admirable. There's too many scared celebrities and athletes these days. It's just like, what's the harm? It's a TV show, you know?
Also, just like, let's talk about things, you know? Let's just have some conversations.
Yeah, what's the harm? Like, John C. Reilly was goofing around. Okay, your dad looks like, you know, a little bit of an adulterer, a little bit of a, you know, asshole maybe, but like, whatever. He's not even around anymore, and I'd say his legacy looks pretty nice with all the rafters, how decorated the rafters are at Staples Center, right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, he won.
Yes. All right, let's go to our season preview of those Lakers, starting with the most important player. Brendan, I'm just going to say it. It's LeBron James. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this team is still driven by LeBron. This team is still kind of going as far as LeBron can take it in a lot of ways. They need him to be healthy. They need him to be healthy when it matters. They need him to be able to sustain a very high level of play at a minutes total and an age that has just historically never been done. Mm-hmm. They need him to be something spectacular. If they're going to maximize this title window, maximize them getting there, maximize this season, it's kind of on LeBron's shoulders again in a way that I don't know if he really wants it to totally be at this point of his career, but I think just what AD is, what LeBron is, what the rest of the roster is, I really, really think you're in a spot where LeBron is still the most important player for these Lakers.
I don't agree. I don't think.
Okay, tell me.
I don't think
tell me why
last
I'm
year's
wrong.
team was. I don't think last year's team was driven by LeBron being at his peak.
I think
this is Anthony
peak.
Davis. I think that no, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know if you did say peak. I don't think this team was where it was last year because of LeBron. I think there are moments like Game 4 against the Nuggets or the various points in, you know, six minute increments that he just turns it on, and of course is still a game changing player. I think the way that they played defense might have been possible because of Anthony Davis, but it was also at its best because in part of LeBron and the way that he was just straight up like not even really guarding anybody at times in the playoffs and was just kind of as long as you don't fully lose track of anybody out there, you're allowed to just sag into the paint and try to create turnovers or be a helper at the basket or whatever. And then, of course, the offense, even though he was settling for jumpers quite a bit and all the rest, he showed that he still has a lot left. But this is a guy who had a significant injury down the stretch of the season, who you should expect to have a significant injury down the stretch of most seasons. And if you look at the on-off, in the playoffs, both LeBron and AD on, +4. LeBron on, Davis off, -11.
Mm-hmm.
AD on, LeBron off, +4. And then both off, which was only 45 minutes, but +13. So, to me, the way that Darvin Ham has put together this defense, the way that Rob Pelinka has put together the roster with a lot of defensive versatility and big perimeter forwards and wings that can guard multiple positions, they're going to go as far as their defense takes them, in my opinion, and as a result of that, they're going to go as far as Anthony Davis takes them. That's the case as I would make it.
I think that's a really good argument. I think you're probably correct. I just can't see a version of this season where they win the title and LeBron isn't able to carry the offense enough through that stretch run. If he needs to be healthy enough to get there. He just has to be healthy enough for him to get to that point.
Setting health aside, because that is an obvious thing to say about the Lakers and LeBron and Anthony Davis. If they're both healthy, if they are both clearly playing the best basketball of their lives, which I think we would agree they probably have to do to leapfrog the teams that I think you and I both see as ahead of them. Let's say everything breaks right. Is LeBron the first best player on this team or the second, let's say most important? First or second most important player on the absolute pinnacle of what the Lakers can be this year? Health, 100%, no issues. They both play 70 games. Where is the hierarchy? What's the pecking order? How's the value breakdown for you in that version of events? Because the health is like, of course.
Yeah, I would just say there's no way LeBron can play the best basketball he's ever played. That's just not going to happen again. That part
not
of it,
the best basketball he's ever played. The best basketball he's capable of.
Okay. I think like it's probably a D because I think he's going to have more two-way responsibility. I think that's I think part of it. I think I'm going to caveat myself. AD regular season, LeBron playoffs.
Okay. I think the what I will give you on the AD part is, despite the fact that I think he played one of his best postseasons and was just relentless getting to the basket, was relentless as a rebounder, made more of his mid-range shots at least in both the regular season and playoffs than he had the previous year and looked a little closer to his bubble self as a result of that, he did wear down. And so I do think like it's probably picking nits to even put one or the other ahead because I think, it's fitting we each picked one of them because I think the season doesn't max out unless both are awesome. But
if one of us had been like Caleb Martin, we would have been full of it, I think we just would have been we're just forcing the issue.
Wait, Caleb Martin?
Pick one of these two guys. Or not Caleb Martin. I'm saying
Austin
if we hadn't
Reaves?
picked one of these, I'm just saying if we hadn't picked anyone that wasn't LeBron or AD, I think you're just like lying to yourself. That's my point.
Yeah. I think. Do you feel better about Davis's ability to be what we're talking about, or what I'm making the case he has to be now than you did coming off of the previous season? Because I do think he kind of proved that the bubble wasn't a fluke. He can still do it, whatever it is. And also the chunk of the regular season that he had, too, especially with LeBron out. If I'm in the Lakers front office, I'm like, all right, like we're kind of back on track with Anthony Davis in a way that I think a lot of people wondered if we would ever get back to, frankly.
It is the most optimistic I have felt about him coming off the playoff run in a long time. No question, right? No question that this is the best I think I felt about AD since the end of the bubble. I don't think there's any debate that this is the most optimism I think anyone could have about AD right now.
Do you see them as we're going to get to best case and worst case, but I said that they're a little bit of a tier below. Do you think of them that way? Like, do you see them as like below Denver, below Phoenix? Is it equal?
Yes.
All three of them are in the same tier. How do you evaluate it?
My A+ tier would be Bucks, Celtics, Nuggets. That's my those are the three best teams in the league right now. Suns and Lakers and the Warriors probably are the next three in their own little conjunction. I think that's the tier, and I think I would have the Suns fourth, probably. I need to see it a little bit. Just need to see how it looks the first 50 games, 25 games before you see it. Warriors, again, you got to see the Chris Paul part of it, and Draymond's already twisted his ankle. Just like them to stay healthy, obviously caveat there. And then the Lakers, I think things could break for them in a way that opens the door, but I think they need a little bit of help in the way that the teams, particularly at the very, very top, don't need something to break in their direction.
All right, who do you have as the guy we're going to be talking about at the end of the season?
The roster's a little bit tricky because I think the answer you could just go here is Austin Reaves.
I think there's
and
been plenty of
that's
Austin
my point.
Reaves talk.
Well,
yeah.
that's my point. It's okay, you can't pick he's just on the freaking national team. So I don't have a good feel for this. I think it's my gut is I want to just pick one of the random young guys that's gonna pop, but I don't have a great idea of how to signal out is Jalen Hood-Schifino just gonna be good?
It's Max
right?
Christie if it's their young guys.
Yeah,
that's who I have.
So So I go with him as well, just because it's the young guy that's actually been around a little bit longer. He's got the frame, but it is straight. This is straight projection. Like, to be clear, like anything we're picking here, 41 games last year, 12.5 minutes a game, shot 42% from three. It's good, but it's like incredibly small sample sizes for him at the NBA level. Again, love the frame. They have a need for this kind of player, like desperately on this roster. But I think it's absolutely a little bit of projection. Good in Summer League. I like what we saw in Summer League, but I think
that's why I would say
it's
it's yeah, of course it is, but I think what he showed at Summer League was probably one of the biggest standouts of the whole tournament, frankly. Like I think good at Summer League almost kind of undersells it. Like he was pretty great at Summer League, you know. He had, 19 assists to 11 turnovers, 55% from 3. He was 18 of 39, so just under 50% from 2, and getting to the basket, getting 31 free throw attempts in 160 minutes. A lot of really positive indicators that he's ready to break out. But, I mean, everything with the young guys is projecting until all of a sudden they're doing it. That's kind of the spirit of this category, right? It's like, who's the guy that hasn't done it that might? So I think if you're looking at this roster, to your point, it's like Rui, Reaves. We talked about those guys. They're not really breakout candidates. Taurean Prince,
No.
like, okay, we know. Vanderbilt, we know. Like, there's some ifs and question marks with those guys, but it's not as if they're going to, like, blow things up, blow up out of nowhere. So I'm curious what you said that they desperately need a guy like this. What role do you think he could play if he does kind of break out? Because that was one of the things holding me back a little bit from naming him is I'm like, 3-and-D, like, I guess he has a little bit better defensive upside than Reaves, probably a better, more consistent shooter if he really breaks right than some of their other guys. But, like, I actually don't know what the pathway into the rotation is for him unless there's a trade. But what do you think?
I just think, like, shooting and eating minutes and being another option, just if and when some of these guys don't work out, like Cam Reddish might not be playable. Caleb Martin, like there could be some issues with this roster.
You keep saying Caleb Martin. He's not on this team.
Who am I?
You're thinking of the Heat because we talked about the Heat with Wes.
Yeah,
Gabe Vincent, different Heat player. Okay.
Yeah. Just my brain's fried. Like you can have the situation where like some of these guys just don't perform in the way you need them to. I look at Reddish. I look at this roster, and it's like, okay, are we sure 100% Taurean Prince? I know they're not exactly the same thing, but like this Taurean Prince, like he was available on the cheap for a reason, right? Like it's not like any of necessarily these guys they've gotten are there, or do they trade D'Lo? And like they're just like, okay, we need to plug in like guard minutes. Like you make some kind of trade that's a little more tilted for size, and all right, it's time for Max Christie stuff. There's always the NBA season will dictate something for you. Mm-hmm. That someone is going to have to step up and you don't expect it. And it's really hard for us to project like what that's going to look like, why it happens, even who it's going to be. But if someone like Christie is going to pop or at least get a run, it's because like he can shoot and he can eat minutes and he's got good size to like maybe guard a couple spots. That to me is projectable in a way that these other guys are not. Like you could have been like, man, Jackson Hayes gets a real boost getting like playing with LeBron as his pick and roll ball handler. Like Reaves is what he is. I don't have any faith that this is finally where Cam Reddish is.
Yeah,
like
I don't think Reddish is going
to
play. So I think Christie's already ahead of him in the pecking order.
Is Christie
it'll
clutch,
be interesting.
By the way, like Cam Reddish is. Just
I'm not sure. I mean, if they drafted him, so if it was, it would have been,
Yeah. So the other thing, the other thing I will just say, I think about Christie, just to reinforce to me that this is somewhat of a projection. Do you know how many G League games he's played?
I'm on his real GM page, but I think you said he played 41 in the NBA, so I don't think he was in the G League very much last year.
Played 1. So it's just like the NBA minutes are not like.
Wait, I'm seeing
like
13.
His basketball reference page has 1.
Basketball reference is weird with G League and and like summer league and stuff like that. That is weird that it's such a big discrepancy. It's South Bay Lakers, 13 games played is what it says on Real GM, but his numbers are not great in those games either. So either way, I mean, 13 is not a lot. He had 387 total minutes, shot 29% from three. So like, you're not going to point to that to be like, this is the year.
No, okay. So the official G League site has 13 as well. Basketball Reference, love you, but please, I want to have one page. That should actually just be, honestly, the G League stuff should just be on like their page. They should just be like a carve out of like, this is their G League stats.
Basketball Reference has a lot more NBA numbers than anywhere else, but Real GM is nice because it does have it. It has college, international, G League, and NBA all in one place. It's actually funny with him, though, because if you do look at the college, he did not shoot well there either. So it would be a pretty big breakout for him to suddenly like be lights out from behind the arc.
If he is that, though, like that's also just the kind of role player that LeBron and AD need. And you could
it's like
see
the
like
KCP role, right? It's that for what they were in the bubble. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting because they do sort of not need, but it would be nice if like one of the young guys kind of broke out between Hayes, Reddish, and Christie. It would just make them a little deeper, a little more frisky on both ends of the floor, a little less reliant on like Vanderbilt or Prince, like you said. But want to go to best lineup?
Yeah. I think this is pretty straightforward.
Okay, so last year in the regular season, because of the trades, no lineup played more than like 290 possessions together, I think was the most or so.
Yeah.
Like just shy of 300. But the best one did come after the deadline, which makes sense because that's when their season really turned around, and it was what you would guess. It was their starting lineup in the playoffs, which was Russell, Reaves, Vanderbilt, LeBron, Davis. But in the playoffs, their best actual overall lineup, even though it wasn't always their starting lineup, Schroeder, Reaves, Rui, LeBron, AD. So I think that's kind of the template. I agree with you. I didn't have to think crazy hard about this one, but I'll let you go first.
Reaves, Vincent, LeBron, pick one of your forwards. I would lean Rui for the offense, but I think you could tell me Vanderbilt is the right pick, and I wouldn't fight you too hard on it because it gives you some really good LeBron defensive cover, although, again, Rui played out of his mind last year, and then it's AD. The template here is to play really big, to be really big at guards, to trust Reaves' playmaking to grow, to trust Vincent as a guy that can play within the cog of this machine in the way he did in Miami, for LeBron to be LeBron, and to just have a really, really big front line and to be a bully of a team in that way and to lean into that and have AD at the 5, even with the other centers you got, to eat some innings and play with him at times, I'm sure. It's about AD at the 5, and it's about embracing what that offers you and pairing it with all this other size at the other spots. And D'Lo's going to have his role. I don't think he's in their best 5 when it comes down to it either.
No, I don't think so. The fact that Reaves took a leap and that they made a choice to replace Schroeder with Vincent makes me think they don't fully buy that. And as much as I
mean, he's on a tradable contract. Like he's pretty clearly on one of those deals that if it's traded in February, it's like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, which sucks for him. Like I do at a certain point feel for guys who he's really not as terrible as on defense as people like to make it out. His focus wanes. He doesn't play through screens very well, all that stuff. But like, there's a reason he just got $16 million. I think, he's one of those guys that gets talked about like he's just like a complete joke. And I think that does kind of suck for him, but they signed him for the purpose of trading him. Like we can just kind of be realistic at the same time. But my best lineup for the 2024 Los Angeles Lakers, I have Gabe Vincent as well. I think that he is going to be somebody who really just fills the shooter role, but ideally is a little bit of a better shooter, can pass it enough, not going to get into the paint the same way, but that's okay. I have Austin Reaves. I think that he is really, as he showed, exactly what this team needs as far as a tough bucket getter, a guy who can get to the free throw line. He can play within their defense enough to make it work. I have Rui Hachimura as well. I think I buy the shooting. I buy the fact that he is a competent offensive player. I think that was not a fluke. It was a breakout, but that doesn't mean it's not repeatable, and I think it will be. And I think his defense is actually pretty valuable to them too. LeBron James, of course, Anthony Davis, of course. Those guys are going to be the end-all, be-all for this team at the end of the day. But I like that 5 for them as far as carrying over their identity from last year and being able to get the job done on both ends for sure. I don't really know. I've seen some chatter on Lakers Twitter, Chris, about the idea of Taurean Prince potentially starting or closing. And I think the idea there is maybe if Rui just actually doesn't hit, that you kind of have insulation at that almost identical role, really. And I guess I can see that, but it already feels like if Rui is that disappointing so quickly, then you're kind of already screwed in a way. So I don't think I can convince myself on that one fully.
Yeah, Taurean Prince is there to give you different big wing options. He is not there to be like your best option to play that role.
Yeah,
you paid Rui, like to quote Mad Men. That's what the money is for. The money is for Rui to like be that dude.
Do you buy it? What we saw from him? I mean, what he did from the trade deadline through the end of the playoffs was something like just straight up we've never even come close to seeing from him.
I'm always a little skeptical of those like in-season turnarounds, but what I will say is that his willingness to chase that out speaks volumes to the possibility that it's real. I think if that just kind of like happened and it was just kind of like a fluke, you would kind of like know because you'd like, oh, he's not really playing that way. It just kind of like happened, and it's more of like a numbers thing. When you watched him, it felt like it was a guy who was like actually in like a environment he was invested in, and in a team that was kind of invested in him, and he understood his role. And you will hear until forever NBA veterans talk about like you find your place in the league. And I'm paraphrasing various people. You find your place in the league when you figure out that like what your role is and accept that role. And if this is what that is, then I think there should be a lot of optimism that he can be something like he was last year.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I think the fact that he didn't play for Japan, like even something small like that, and he was pretty vocal about like, hey, I want to keep figuring this thing out in LA and getting better, and I will play in the Olympics, but I'm not going to go kind of waste my time at FIBA. Like that felt cool to me too. He obviously had the time away from the Wizards the prior season with mental health and whatever, and like, you know, if he's in a better place there, I think a lot of things align to feel like, you know, at some point it happens for guys, and I don't see why it couldn't have been that way for him. Best case scenario, I have a championship.
Same. It's the ceiling is there. Is it the likeliest opportunity here? But a championship is the best case for this team. Worst case is go ahead.
I like how they match up with the Suns. That's what I was going to say. I think that they are a team that has the physicality, size, and if the Suns are able to just make it kind of a shootout, I think that's where it gets ugly. But I don't really think the Lakers are going to let teams make game shootouts. I think that their defense is just pretty real. So I think that that's a team that they could actually give some trouble to. So I don't hate you saying that they're on the same tier. I kind of do. You know, watch out. You know, there might be some sort of explosive in your mailbox or something at some point for that comment. But otherwise, I hear you. I think that they do match up well. The Nuggets, kind of a different story, but, you know, it's a conversation for a different time. Worst case, I just had another year lost to injuries. Oh, did you want to respond to the explosive? Did you want my death threat there? Did you want to address that?
You know, I was going to just say wait until you hear how Brendan, just, you know, I'm pretty much like ready to like bury the Cavs when we get to the preview a little bit.
Okay. All right. So I can't do any more damage to you than your team has already done. Is that what you're saying?
No, here's the thing. That's not the if you were gonna hurt me, you would like get the English like football association, the FA, to like give Liverpool back the points from the weekend. That would hurt me.
Okay.
So
you're just detached. You're cruising.
Yeah, like that's not the thing that can emotionally wound me.
Okay.
Or like if you're like I actually think Kobe is better than LeBron, then like we might not be friends anymore.
Well, our video editor and social media hype man can address that separately with you.
He's wrong. He's wrong if it's his belief. But worst case is injuries, and then they end up in like the play-in again and have to like muck through it, because then there's 0% chance they're ending up as like the 7th seed and like pulling this off. They are in this weird spot where they need LeBron to like almost like play a ton, and for them to maximize the regular season so they don't have like the hardest path possible in the playoffs.
They are definitely a team where we talk about a lot in this, era of the NBA and whatever, that the regular season has kind of been discounted and this and that. But I think, they should absolutely chase a high seed, and the fewer games that they have to go through in order to make another finals or a conference finals would go an incredibly long way. I'm looking it up now. This team was a 43-win team with the expected win of 42 last year, but after the All-Star break, they were as good as the second best net rating team in the NBA, which is your Cleveland Cavaliers, and they were a 51-win team. So, the post All-Star break Lakers were like a 50-win team.
Yeah, they're good.
And so another season of playing together, a deeper roster. I think if they even get decent health from their superstar players, like a higher seed is definitely within reach, and they should chase it. I would advocate for them playing their guys and really valuing the regular season in a way that I might not otherwise, which is why I went over 47.5. What did you have?
I'm going over as well. I think this team is good enough. I think, again, health provided, there's not really a reason this team should win between like 50 and 53 games. And I think even if LeBron like only plays like 65, they could still pretty reasonably do this with the other talent they have. Like AD plus the talent they have is enough to beat a lot of crappy teams in the NBA.
Yeah, I think the one thing you would say is there's no replacing Davis, but they don't exactly give you a lot of faith that when Davis inevitably misses some number of games, even if it's not a ton, that they will suffer. They don't have another defensive center on the roster. They don't really have a front court rotation to be excited about. Christian Wood is a big wild card, I guess. If he finally hits, 8 years into his career, then things could look different. But the Davis injury caveat has to be there, as does the LeBron one. But I still like the over, because they turned it around, but it's not exactly like LeBron and AD were like a picture of health last year.
No, and I don't think you can ever assume they're going to be a picture of health.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like they were still solid enough post
really
All-Star
good.
break and overall, despite a season like that. So even if you guess that happens again, I kind of trust them to kind of adapt and figure that out in a way, again, kind of like we were saying with Davis overall, that I would have worried about prior to kind of them proving it. So, yeah, this team's going to be one of my favorites to watch, I think, this year.